Okay, to start with, we're going to do a walk around of what the bed looked like when it was finally finished. From there, I'll give you a couple of more photos of the finished product. As you can see, mud flaps, lights, gas, everything has been mounted along with the flatbed, which is pressure treated. This is a showing of what it looked like just before putting pressure treated on. And from here, I'll give you an idea of what it cost and what you need for dimensions to build your own.
Okay, so I figured I'd give you all the measurements on the different pieces. That way you can price it out in your area as to how much this build is going to cost you and decide for yourself whether you want to do it. Currently, the date is October 2012. I live in the United States, and this build, metal-wise, other than this piece that I was able to find in a scrap pile, has cost me $268 in metal, and that's not counting welding supplies also. Okay, so let's move on. First, let's cover the 1.5 inch thick steel pieces, and then we'll move down to the inch square tubing. So for 1.5 inch, we have the two side pieces, one here and one here. Those are 72 inches long. The end pieces, which is this one and this one back here, are 63 inches long. And then our two inner frame pieces, one and then two, which are the ones that match up to the frame rail on the truck, those are 69 inches long. And underneath we have the mounting pieces that lift it up so that the wheels have travel. And I decided to make those 6 3/4 inches, and the reason being was on this Ford Ranger, the travel from drive axle to frame with hitting the bump stop is about 7 inches. I chose just to make it the 6 3/4 because I was starting to run out of steel, and that fit on the piece I had. From there, we move on to the 1 inch square tubing. The first thing are the ribs going across. These ones here, there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those are 15 inches and 3/8. And then we've also got this one and the one that I'm sitting on. Those are 29 inches long, or yep, those are 29 inches long. And then depending on whether you want to make the side rails like I did, this top piece is 72 inches, so it matches with the bottom. And then each of these underneath, there's 4 of them. I chose to make them 8 inches. Once I add my 5/4 deck, it will leave me about 6.5, 7 inches on each side, which is more than enough for me to strap a board to it if I need a higher siding. Another note that I would make is that this piece here I scrounged, and I mated it up to the truck and found that this actually, at this height, ends up in the window view, but you're able to see past it. And it is at the top 17 inches off the deck. So if I was doing it to make it come in underneath the window, I would have to get it down to about 15 inches. But for my particular application where I'm using this to haul lawn tractors, this is the height that the front bumper on a lot of larger tractors is at, and I wanted to make sure that I would hit that and not the window.
Alright, so let's get building. The first thing we're going to do is get everything leveled out. Square everything off. And this is just rough for now. Once everything is squared off, then measure across diagonally. Then measure back across, and you should be able to have them match up. Shift them accordingly as needed. Now, let's level it out. That way all of our cuts and everything come up square to make it better when we weld. Having a ton of random wedges really helps in this. Okay, so now measure back across, and then we're able to get it welded. Remember to weld back and forth, that way the heat doesn't cause any bowing. Okay, so now that everything's welded up on the sides, keep in mind we haven't done the bottom yet. Now we need to position the center rail based on the frame rail of the truck. I found that my frame rail from center to center was 32.5 inches. So I positioned my center rails accordingly. Remember again, always weld back and forth. This way the heat doesn't cause anything to warp. Alright, once your rails are in, flip it up so that it's on its side. Make sure to go through and tack all the undersides. Now that we got it flipped back down, we need to put the ribs in. I positioned my ribs at 2 feet on center, since it is a 6-foot bed, which means you'll need to weld in 6 ribs. Remember yet again to go back and forth as you're tacking them in. This way the heat doesn't warp them. Okay, I didn't have any video of loading the deck on, but as you can see, I got it up onto and lined it up with the frame, and then I found that 3 2x4s stacked on top of each other was almost the perfect width with a couple of add-ons. Also, make sure to cover up your fuel tank. This is how I got it back off once I had tacked the legs on, because keep in mind you're not able to weld up in underneath because the gas tank is in the way for most of it. So you have to manage to unload it, and I had to do it by myself. So if you position a couple of 2x4s in underneath the end and then lift them up a little and then press, and then slowly drag it over and then lift the back legs up onto the 2x4s, which is easier said than done. There you go. And now you can just slide it down onto your floor And we'll tip it up and weld all of the legs on. Yet again, remember to go back and forth, back and forth. This way the legs stay square. Here I've also included how I mounted my deck. Along the back side I put 1.5 L iron so that the boards could slide in underneath, welded across. And then on the back I cut out a drop-in piece. You'll see that on the end I've cut a notch out that's 1 inch by 1 inch so that it goes around the rear rails and then drops in. And then I'll also point out that I left holes to be able to screw self-tapping screws through. That way I can mount it and make sure it's solid. And there we go. Just another walk around to see the finished product. The taillights are mounted using a 2x4 in underneath, and then the 2 screw holes that were in from factory are used to mount to that 2x4.